to order, and I guess we'll do the roll. I'm the chair, Pete Peterson. Other members, introduce yourself.
Suzanne LaFrance.
Anyone else calling in today? I know that several members are have previous things scheduled. And so since appears that we're not going to have a quorum today, we'll have to have just be an informational meeting. And that was sort of what it was set up for anyway, it looks like, if you look at the agenda here. So someone wanting to talk about the new business, the election certification, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to make sure that everyone is clear, because there's not a quorum for this meeting, this is just an informational meeting. It means that the committee can't take any action at this meeting, and typically the committees don't take any action. So even adjournment you won't need to do. But we're recorded and we'll have this information on the record. So talking about election certification at the regular assembly meeting of April 26, 2022. I would like to remind the members that the municipal code says that the public session of canvass shall take place no later than the third Friday after the election. And that date is April 22nd. Typically, we have held the public session of canvass on the second Friday after the election. And we originally had it scheduled for that date. And then certification would have been at, I believe, the meeting of April 19th. And so the assembly has usually had 3 meetings in April, 1 for certification and then 2 regular meetings. Well, in the last couple of years, we have noticed that voters have increasingly indicated to us that the time period to cure is not long enough. So if a voter votes on election day, they're required to get the opportunity to cure letter within the 3 days of processing their envelope. But because of the volume of ballots that we get on the day before an election day, sometimes those envelopes aren't processed until Thursday or Friday. And then 3 days from that could be the next Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And then the deadline is that Friday. So they have 2 days to cure. And so we thought it would make more sense to push that out to the following week to take advantage of what the code says about the public session of canvass, and then certify on the Tuesday after that. So that's why the date has changed, and we just wanted to make sure that we've talked to the chair and the vice chair of the assembly and Mr. Peterson, the chair of the Ethics and Elections Committee. And I think you all agreed to this change, but we just wanted to remind everyone why we recommended it and why you agreed to that. I think it'll be interesting, and we'll see what happens at that meeting, because it's going to be a regular business meeting and you're going to be busy that day. And obviously, when we get to it, we'll see how this works. And if we need to do it differently next year, we will be happy to do that. The one other thing I would like to point out, our goal was to have the public session of canvass as late as possible on that April 22nd date, but our commissioners can't attend. So we've scheduled and it would be a quorum of our commissioners couldn't attend, particularly our new commissioners who didn't have that date on their calendars because they were just appointed in January and February. So the commission has selected April 18th to do the public session of Canvas. That's a Monday. It still gives voters an extra 3 days to get their ballots in. It's still longer than what we had provided the year before. And so we think that's a good thing. And that's what's going to happen for now. So that's it on election certification. And we just wanted to make sure everyone was on board with that.
Okay, that sounds fine to me. Do you have any questions, Ms. LaFrance?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm good.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I guess then we can move on to new business item B, a brief municipal election update. And Ms. Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. With our election updates, I'm going to talk about some election best practices, and then I'm going to let our acting Deputy Clerk of Elections, Jamie Hines, talk to you about some of the exciting things that are happening down at the election center. And so just to remind us what some election best practices are, we have 6 of them that we're always monitoring. And those are extended early voting. And we currently meet that criteria for a best practice because we mail ballots 21 days before the election, and we have our vote centers that are open 9 days before the election. We increased the hours last year, so all of the vote centers are open on Saturday and Sunday, and we also changed the hours so that they're open until 6 p.m. So we do have extended early voting. The second best practice is no excuse vote at home ballots. And as you know, ballot packages are mailed to all qualified registered voters at least 21 days before the election, and to our military and overseas voters a little bit before that. The third one is prepaid postage. And I'm going to come back to prepaid postage. That is one best practice we do not follow, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. We also have the fourth criteria is fair ballot curing policies. And as I mentioned regarding the certification issue, voters are mailed an opportunity to cure letter within 3 days of processing their ballot envelope. And this is Anchorage with 3 days is considered, that is considered a really good practice. I think that there are some other jurisdictions that have no ballot curing policies, or if they get that letter, they have a much shorter time to cure. So if you vote on, let's say March 15th, as soon as you get your ballot package, we mail your opportunity to cure letter on March 18th. You have until the start of the public session of Canvas to cure, which is April 18th. So, you know, that's a really positive pro-voter policy. The fifth criteria is multiple accessible return options. And, you know, people can return their return ballot package by mail. They can return it by FedEx or UPS or any other delivery service. They can put it in one of the 18 drop boxes throughout the municipality, or they can take it to one of the vote centers during the 9 days that they're open. And the last best practice is ballot tracking. And we've been really happy to let you know that we've we're working with Ballot Tracks, and that the public does have this great option to track their ballots. We had this option last year. People could call the call center and get the same information, but we think this is a step in the right direction where voters can sign up and get a text or email or voice alert. And thanks very much for mentioning that at the last assembly meeting, Mr. Peterson. I told you I was good.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a way for us to know how many people have signed up for Track Your Ballot already?
There is, and I suspect that Liz or Amy would know the answer to that.
Does anyone have a?
Yes, through the chair, so far we've had 1,247 voters sign up.
1,247. Well, that's a good start. I still have plenty of time. The ballots don't go out in the mail for, well, 3 weeks from yesterday, I believe. So
Right. So I told you I was going to talk a little bit more about prepaid postage. And the reason that I want to talk about that is one of the best practices that the municipality does not follow. And the definition of prepaid postage is that the jurisdiction puts prepaid postage on the return ballot package envelope, so voters don't have to pay postage. And the information that I have says that most jurisdictions that do cover postage use business reply mail for their prepaid postage, and then the state or other jurisdiction only pays when voters mail those envelopes back. And then that way, we looked into the cost, and it was like about $90,000 to add postage to all of those envelopes if you actually paid for a stamp. So the practice says that it's important because vulnerable voters who might not have access to a stamp, and the cost for mailing a ballot, it's can vary across jurisdictions depending on, 1 year we had to say you had to have 2 stamps because we had a 2-card ballot. But I wanted to point out to you that the problem with this, and we're interested in looking into it again, but business reply mail is typically not postmarked. And some of you may have heard about the Juneau election that rejected a very high number of return ballot envelopes for lack of a postmark. And although Juneau my understanding was that they were informed by the post office that all election mail is stamped or postmarked, that there was, a large number of these, a couple hundred return ballot packages that did not get postmarked. And as a result of the Juneau code, which looks like our code and looks like state law code, that those ballots could not be counted. Our code says that they have to be postmarked by election day and received by the start of the public session of canvass. And state law also says postmarked by election day. Some of these other jurisdictions may have laws that say received by election day. And then if that's your code, then you don't need to worry about the envelopes being postmarked after election day. But we do. And so right now we are not following this best practice, and we are looking into seeing if this can be done and still require a postmark. But for now, that is our position, that we're not going to risk rejecting more envelopes that don't have a postmark. So we'll continue to be in touch with you about that. And that's my overview of our status on best practices. And Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I think I'd like to ask Jamie to give you a little bit of an update on our election.
That is fine with me. Was wondering if Member LaFrance had any questions about the election update we just got.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Jones, for that update. I do have a question about prepaid postage. And I know you had mentioned state of Alaska law and local code. And so, but it sounds like state of Alaska law may not be the limiting factor if local jurisdictions have a code that permits something other than being postmarked, or how does that, how do the two work together? And at our here in Anchorage, then it's local code as well as state, or if you could just say a little more about that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sure. Through the chair, Ms. LaFrance, there are two competing policies here. First, I think Mr. Burke is on the line, and I think Dean is on the line too. And they can confirm that as a home rule jurisdiction, Anchorage can probably put whatever code it wants. But given that, I think that the competing policy concerns are that voters in Anchorage vote in both municipal and state elections. Most voters do not know the difference between state and municipal elections. So the municipality has worked really hard to make sure that we are using similar terminology to the state. We are using similar practices as the state. And the state is doing some of the same. They're using our drop boxes. And so we think that helps voters vote. I think having different rules, especially something like this, could be very, I would say, not pro-voter to tell voters that their ballots had to be returned by election day. I think that is not, that would be going backwards, in my opinion, as far as pro-voter. But you are correct. That is a policy decision that the assembly gets to make.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one other brief question, because I want to make sure to mention this at my community council meeting tonight, that vote centers, they'll be open 9 days before the election and open Saturdays and Sundays every day of the week until 6 p.m. And then what time do they open?
Through the chair, Ms. LaFrance, I'm going to ask Amy Solberg to email that information to you, because they are open until 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, but they are not open till 6 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. They have limited hours on Saturday and Sunday. But Monday through Friday, they open at 9 and are open until 6 p.m. And but I'll have Amy send you that information so you can tell them exactly what that is.
That sounds great, Ms. Jones. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited about the ballot tracking and have been talking that up as well at community councils. And hopefully we will see that number continue to go up soon.
Thank you.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Ms. LaFrance and Ms. Jones. And it looks like Mr. Gates has got a comment. Go ahead, Dean.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would just confirm what Ms. Jones described, you know, the interplay of state law and municipal code and the elections. And I thought I'd just comment to say that in state statute, there's several chapters in Title 15 about elections, and some apply statewide to all municipalities, like the APOC chapter of state statutes, and some election offenses And then there's a few specific provisions, but then a lot of the state statutes about operation of polls and things like that, those just apply to state elections. The language in state statutes make it pretty clear, you know, if you're reading through them, you sort of get the understanding of that. And then in Title 29 of our statutes, and again, Ms. Jones is right, we're a home rule municipality, so we were able to enact our own election rules. They have some rules in Title 29, a few of them apply, like the notice of elections that we have to publish, we have to follow that, and a few things like that. But as I thought that just commenting on that, which state statutes are applicable, which is not a lot of them, a few of them, would be helpful for understanding. And that's why we spend so much time in our details in Title 28 for our code, because we make our own rules, and a lot of those are policy decisions, like Ms. Jones has presented.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Dean. Any other comments or questions about the election update that we got a couple minutes ago?
And I think Jamie might have a little bit longer update for you about what's happening in the upcoming election.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Going on at Election Center right now, we are a very well-oiled machine. We have processed over 230 temporary address applications. We've submitted our voter file to the print and mail vendor. We have 210,742 voters who will be receiving ballot packages. We have 1,313 overseas voters who will be receiving ballot packages. And we have our sample ballot map up on our website. We sent you links to all of that information this morning. We have submitted our ballot order for our stock for our Anchorage vote centers to our print vendor. We have been continuing our outreach and education. We've been conducting tours. Our social media platforms have been updated regularly with different themes. One theme is Neighbors for Democracy, and another theme is Just the Facts. They've been getting a lot of activity. And we've also been putting out press releases. I put out a press release last week about ballot tracks, and then we also went to the Federation of Community Councils meeting and presented on that. Liz did that. We are gearing up for training, which begins actually tomorrow. We have several different training days over the next several weeks. We have logic and accuracy testing on March 3rd that we're gearing up for. And we are also finalizing our observer training. And if I forgot something, anybody is welcome to chip in. Otherwise, I'll toss it back to you.
I actually have a question. Have we set up any training for observers online? Because there was some input that we got from people that they thought that would be something that would be good for them if we could do that.
Mr. Chair, I'll take that question. You know, we are grateful to the administration. The mayor's, we contacted the mayor's office because the mayor offered to help us with that. And we've been working with IT, and they've got us set up with the ability to set up some online training. And I will say Jamie has created the content for the online training, and we need to kind of marry those two things up and polish it up. But yes, we are going to have online training for observers, and we'll also probably do some in-person training as well. But we're really excited about it, and I think it's just looking really good, and we're grateful to everybody that's helped us make that a reality.
Well, great. When we were first starting talking about that, it sounded like it made perfect sense. But getting IT to put it together and actually making it happen it's not automatic. It takes a little development. So congratulations to the team that's been working on that. And thank you. Any other comments, questions, or updates? If not, I guess we can see if there's any one from the public who would like to participate. Anyone interested in audience participation? Excuse me, if you're calling in, *6 on your phone to unmute. Not seeing anyone yet. Anyone member of the public wish to participate? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I guess we'll have to end this meeting. And so we'll have to get organized for our meeting in the month of March. And we'll see everyone then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Chair.
you.